the name of Christ, who blesses us with every spiritual gift and loved us before the foundations of the world. Amen. Please be seated. It is just an odd time of year. You probably know it. I mean, my house is sort of half Christmas and half not Christmas. The tree is still up, but the greens that were on the table that were way too dry, well, they're gone already. The lights in the windows will stay up until tomorrow, and our plastic Mary and Joseph, I think they're worn out by that baby, because every time the wind blows, they lay down. I go out there and put them back up again. And so it is still Christmas. We are on the 11th day of Christmas, and yet most of the world, most of the secular world has said, oh, no, we're done with that. No more Christmas hymns, no more Christmas cake, no more Christmas tree, and yet still we hang on to this. You'll notice that in the windows, the wise men have moved up one window, and one guy, he is just ready to get to the altar and give his gift to Jesus and for the Feast of Epiphany. And even some churches, I've heard rumors, are celebrating Epiphany today. Oh my gosh, what is that about? No. Let's stay on Christmas just a little bit longer, but let's acknowledge it is just this odd time. School has not yet gone back. It may go back tomorrow, depending on how the snow does or doesn't do. Some of us have had time off from work. The church office is now reopening. We're getting back into that pattern of things, but it's still just an odd time. It's also a good time. It's a good time because as we gather in this season of Christmas and this season of incarnation, we are reminded again of what Christmas means for us. What is the meaning of this? Not just as one night, not just as one day, not just as one baby in a manger, but what does it mean for us? What does that star mean, by the way? Well, let's just step into Epiphany for just a little bit, because I think it will help us understand Christmas. So let's talk about stars. I've got some helpers. Can you hand out some images that we have? So Emmett's going to hand out some stars, one for each box or so. I'm going to change my batteries because I see it's flashing. What Emmett is passing out as you get them, and those watching a live stream have an image to share, are some images from the Hubble telescope of galaxies well beyond our own galaxy, of these fantastic images that now come to us captured by the Hubble telescope. And just a little bit of history, the astronomer Hubble in the early 20th century was trying to prove or disprove that the universe and the galaxy were the same size. And he watched the Andromeda galaxy. The question was, is that sort of on the ceiling of our galaxy, or is that beyond our galaxy? And he watched consistently for several days and realized there was one star that was moving. It was a variation. And he marked on the picture, variation. And that for him proved, in ways that this theologian doesn't understand, proved that because it was moving, there was a galaxy beyond our galaxy. And if there was one, then there had to be plenty. And so when we launched the Hubble telescope, named in his honor, we were able to capture these images of creation well beyond us. And what we're seeing, some are 1,500 years away, some are 4,500 years away, I think some are billions of years away. But what we're seeing is the light that is coming to us from those different distant places. And because light travels over time very fast, we're actually seeing history. You're actually looking at those images and seeing time before right now, billions of years ago, when our world was just created, when the universe was just created. So I'm sort of talking about this because of stars, because the wise men, the magi, those wise folk followed a star. And you're here, it's like Epiphany's tomorrow, you're going to say, oh, we got to talk about stars. So in some ways that's obligatory, but in some ways it's informative, because think about what the letter to Ephesians says that Gary read just a little while ago. That God loved you before the foundation of the world. God loved you before the creation of these nebula. Those images you're looking at, before God thought about making any of those things, God loved you. God's love is so long, so deep, so profound that it should, like these images, blow our minds and make us think in different ways about what this love means for us. The words from Ephesians are clear that God's love for us was made known before creation and in the person of Jesus Christ, who brought us every spiritual gift. His presence as being a baby, comforting those who came to the manger. His presence in that temple that we heard about in Luke. His presence with the sick, the homeless, the hungry. His presence on the cross for all of us. Every spiritual gift comes to us. And we are not strangers. Again, Ephesians is very clear on this. We are not strangers. It's not like God said, well, there are some people over in Gloucester a couple millions of years from now. I think I'll like them. Think about the words that Ephesians has, that language of adoption. And it's not because God had to adopt us. It's because God chose to adopt us. Look at the words in the text. It's freely, it's abundant, it's good. We all know of some cases of adoption where you sort of have to. You know, a couple gets married, one spouse is out of the picture, someone comes along and says, well, I probably need to adopt the kids so they'll have benefits or my name or something. It's sort of expected. You also know those adoptions that take place within families. A couple can't take care of their kids for various reasons, and a sibling adopts those kids to come into their family. So, well, they're my sister's kids, or they're our third cousins or something. There's an expectation there. The adoption that Ephesians is talking about has no expectation. There is no requirement that God is seeking to fulfill. There's nothing that he is expected to do. God's deep, profound adoption of us comes from God's deep, abiding love for us. And so we who have seen the baby in the manger, we who have sung the Christmas carols, we who are trying to venture and understand the depth of the stars, need not do anything to earn God's love. That's why we baptize babies. That's why we baptize people who don't have the full idea of what's going on, even if they're 60 years old or 6 years old. Because we never, I would tell you, we never understand the complete depth of God's love for us, God's choosing us, God's calling us. But what we do out of our love for God and our attempts to repay that is try to be the people God has called us to be. We try to step out in faith and do the work that God has called us to do. We're going to hear those words in our baptismal covenant that we'll say in just a few minutes from now. We're going to say, ask us, Lord, to remember where we come from. Remember the Trinity that is God. Remember the calling that we have to seek and serve you in this world and to recognize and reconcile this world back to you. As those who are loved most profoundly, most deeply, most abundantly by God, the call for us is to share the profound love of God with the world. It calls us, it moves us, it sends us, and it honors us. Because in calling us to be partners, God tells us, not only do I love you, but I honor you and want you to bring your gifts into my ministry, into my fold. You'll hear these words that Wayne says in a little bit as we light the candles and share the new baptismal candidates, the light of Christ. But there's also a poem that I came across a few days ago I think speaks to this. It's written by the theologian Howard Thurman. It's called The Christmas Poem. When the song of angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flocks, that's when the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among the people, to make music in the heart. My friends, the time of Christmas is ending, but the work of Christmas is just beginning. It is the work that calls us to baptism. It is the work that calls us into the world to proclaim, like the shepherds do, the good news of all the marvelous things we have seen and known. As we go into this year as newly baptized and as those of us who are reaffirming our baptismal vows, let us live deeply in the deep, abundant love of God, and let us live exuberantly, working with God to bring about reconciliation with God's world into God's love. Amen.